Hey you guys, what's going on everyone? Welcome to my channel. My name is Keioffa. Welcome back to all my subscribers. Disclaimer up front, the windows open, it's noisy, cars are passing by. I do apologize. It's hot here and I don't think this room has central heat in it. Well, it has central heat. I don't think it has air conditioning. So anyways, the windows open. So just bear with me a little bit. But I wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the risks that I face as a surgical tech and some of the risks that you, if you are pursuing a career in surgical tech, that you may encounter. And this is really for anybody in the medical field in general, especially if you're working with sharps for the most part. So as a surgical tech, and I talked to you guys about what a surgical tech was in my last video. As a surgical tech, one of our objectives is to be able to assemble medical equipment and tools to help the surgeon be able to perform and, you know, do what he needs or she needs to do for the case. So one of the things that we do work with a lot is sharp instruments, whether it's a knife blade or a hypodermic needle, which is just like a needle that you might get a shot with at the doctor's, or some of our instruments themselves are sharp on the ends. So we are very cautious when we're working with these instruments, because what you don't want to happen is for you to get stuck. This is one of the, I don't know if you want to call it the biggest, but probably one of the biggest risks of being a surgical tech is getting stuck by a dirty instrument. So one of the things that we are taught is to not recap a needle. And recapping is basically, if this was the needle and I put the cap on holding it, we don't do that. We typically scoop the cap and then kind of put it back on the needle, or if it's a sharp, then we'll do it that way. But we typically, it's not great practice to have a needle and put the cap on it and then take it off. We don't really do that. Like, I'll take it off and hand it to the doc, but as far as putting it back on, I'll put the cap down on a surface, a flat surface, put the sharp end of the cap, put the sharp end of the instrument into the cap, and then put it on there. There are occasions where I have witnessed or have heard about other people getting stuck by dirty instruments or clean instruments. If it's a dirty instrument, what I would do, I don't know about what y'all got going on at your facility. This is per facility, and if you're in a school, it's whatever your program director, whatever they tell you. But this is what my logic is, you guys. If I get stuck at a facility, let's just say it's a hospital, I'm gonna go to the ED, the emergency room department, and I'm gonna have my work done at that facility's, wherever I'm at that facility's emergency room department. If they don't have an emergency room department because you may be at a surgery center, then obviously you go to the closest emergency room. But if it's me and I'm in a facility, I'm going to the ED. First thing I'm gonna do if I get stuck is I'm gonna milk the area, meaning I'm just gonna, wherever I get stuck, if it's here, I'm gonna squeeze it and push the opposite way that the instrument or whatever went in. If I'm bleeding, this is what happened. If I'm not bleeding, I'll still probably rinse it, but if I'm bleeding, I'll squeeze the area, milk it, make sure I get as much out as I can. Then I'm going to use betadine or some alcohol solution to stop. Probably betadine if I can get betadine. If I can't get betadine, then alcohol is the next option for me. So also, after I go ahead and do that, I'm gonna go, like after I rinse it and milk it and everything, then I'm gonna go to the ED. Another reason that I would go to one of the reasons I would go to the ED is because it's an emergency. It's urgent to me that I've been stuck and I need any treatment immediately to defend myself from whatever this patient might have. This leads me into the second reason why I would go to the ED at that facility. The facility already has the patient information that you need on hand. So if the patient has any type of diseases, you will already know up front. If you go to another facility, they have to get the patient information transferred to the facility, which means that they will have to get the patient's permission to have their healthcare information released and then you will be able to get it and the doctors can see it. This may take a couple of days, this may take a day or two, like who knows. But if you go into the same facility that the patient that you got stuck by the dirty instrument, like if I'm the tech and then you are the person that I stuck myself from, like if it was your germs or whatever, your case, then I'm gonna go wherever your information is, because it'll be easier for me to get the information from that facility. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Another reason that I would go to the ED is because, like I said earlier, it's an emergency case or emergency situation. I want whatever treatment that I can get immediately. I don't want to have to wait. I don't want them to have to find the patient. And another thing too, like, let's just say it's an HIV patient, right? Hold on, let me back up with HIV altogether. First of all, we know if a person come in the OR if they are HIV positive or have whatever communicable disease that this person may have. We are already very much aware of it in the OR. Now, at some places, I will say they will let you know up front, like, hey, this person has HIV or AIDS. And other places, they don't let you know. For me, how I see it is, I treat everybody like they got cooties. Everybody got some. You got some that I don't want, and I might have some that you don't want. I mean, not as for sexually transmitted diseases, but our bodies don't really, like, if I have something that you may be allergic to, then your body's going to be affected, and vice versa. It may not be HIV, but it could be anything. You could have hepatitis, like you could have all kind of diseases that's in you, and I don't really want to have. And so I don't care if you got HIV or whatever you got, chickenpox, I'm still going to treat you all the same. But what I was saying was that some facilities, they'll do certain things like put a dot on the board next to the person's name, or just come and let the room know, you know, what's going on. Now, at a facility that I was working at previously, the training was to not treat HIV patients any differently. And honestly, you're not supposed to. It's a form of discrimination. We can't discriminate against people based off of their medical conditions. And I know y'all like, what? Discrimination? What are you talking about, Keioffa? Yes, discrimination. If you have HIV, you deserve the same treatment as somebody that doesn't have HIV. You'll get the same care from me and my team as somebody else that doesn't have HIV. The reason is not because of the people that know they have HIV or AIDS or any other communicable disease. It's for the people that don't know. Because just because Sarah is healthy, 25-year-old, and she comes from an upstanding family, doesn't mean that Sarah's not tested positive for hepatitis C, HIV, and everything else under the sun. You know what I'm saying? We don't know that about Sarah, and we're not going to assume that Sarah's going to tell us the truth, because working in healthcare, what you'll learn is that people lie to you. People lie about some of the dumbest stuff. People lie about dentures. Like, first of all, you need to let people know if you got dentures in your mouth when you're going to have surgery, because they're going to put something in your mouth. You know, they got to take it out. So anyways, people lie. So that's my point. People lie. So instead of trying to figure out like, oh, this person has HIV, let me move, you know, let me make sure I'm extra careful. No, be extra careful with the motherfucker that look healthy, because that's probably the person that you need to be worried about more than the person that's over here sick and they know they're sick. They're showing you signs and symptoms of them being sick, and they're letting you openly know that, hey, I am contagious, you know, if our blood comes into contact, or because it could be blood to like any mucous membrane, really. But that's like, a lot of people don't realize some of the stresses that, or not stresses, excuse me, some of the risks that come along with being in the OR. So we deal with, like I said, knives, and sometimes they're dirty and they're full of blood that is infected with HIV. And I'm not saying we're like knee deep in this stuff, but what I'm saying is, if you're a squeamish person, if you feel like, oh, somebody got HIV, I'm not gonna touch them, or if this person has this going on, I'm not gonna touch them, this ain't the job for you. Because you're gonna deal with people of all walks and all shades with all kind of problems, and your job is to give them 110% of whatever you got for that day. Like my patients, even though I'm a surgical tech, and a lot of people are like, oh, surgical techs don't really do patient care. We really don't do patient care like that. But if I'm in a room, and especially in the capacity that I'm working in right now, I'm precepting a lot. So that means I can help. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, you guys. I can help my nurse out with certain things because my preceptee is scrubbed in. Most of the time they're good enough for me to just step out the room for a minute or do something for the nurse. So we can help the nurses out, and I don't have no problem with coming up to a patient, putting a warm blanket on them, hooking them up to anesthesia monitors, or at least assisting with this. Like, I don't have no problem with that. I'm engaged with my patient. I want them to feel comfortable and safe, you know, at all times. So yeah, you guys, it's another thing that we encounter and people kind of don't think about it. And I'm sorry that this video is not going to be 20 minutes long. I'm gonna stop it. But we sometimes encounter combative patients. It could be one or two ways, or it could be multiple ways, but we'll just talk about, I guess, two. One way is it could be like a sight patient, but most of the time if it's sight, then they are already sedated a little bit and they might have some soft restraints on. If it's a person that is initially kind of questionable as far as their mental capacity, we already got our drugs on board. But let's just say it's somebody that come back in the OR and they have a complete panic attack, and that happens. Like, it could be coming in a room that could trigger them. It could be putting an oxygen mask on them that could trigger patients. Or on the other end, when they're waking up and they're in an unfamiliar place, then they come up, they wake up combative, you know, trying to fight because they don't realize what's going on. They see all these random people standing around them. Everybody got masks on, like everybody, like all you see is this, you know, so that's a little nerve-wracking. So I did learn a long time ago that, let's just say we have a combative patient and you're talking to them, everybody got these, everybody in full OR PPE or universal precaution, and this person is looking up at you, you know, and they're trying to get up. They think you hope, because for one, their arms are strapped down, they're strapped down on the bed, so they don't realize it at that moment that you're there to help them. So sometimes you have to try to calm your patient down. If you're not able to de-escalate the situation, a lot of times there is an assist team that'll come in and like do whatever they need to do. But if it's a person like that come in the room, they have an anxiety attack, your role, if you're scrubbed in, is to stay scrubbed in and to make sure that the back table is sterile in case the procedure goes on. If it's at the end of the case, then you can stay in the back with your back table as a surgical tech. But what I have been taught to do is take my mask off so they can see the person. You don't want people to just see a mask and people yelling at them, rah, 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 calm down. They need a person, and they need you to not be yelling at them. And sometimes it is the surgical tech and a nurse in the room, or the surgical tech, the nurse and anesthesia in the room. And so what that means is that you are a part of the team, so you might be able to calm the person down because they may find something familiar in you that they don't see in somebody else. And as long as you remain calm, the patient typically remains calm. And so I'll say, if you got a combative patient, some of the first things to take into consideration, and this I learned from being an EMT. I learned this when I was like in the Navy and being an EMT, is to first make sure you're safe. Don't nothing else matter, because you can't help the next person if you knocked out on the floor because one of your patients hit you upside the head because you weren't paying attention to what was going on in the room. So make sure you're safe. After you're safe, the next person that you need to make sure is safe is your patient. And that could be making sure that even if they like combative to where they're like, you know, flailing their arms around and stuff, just make sure there's nothing in their way that they can hurt themselves. And just try. It's anesthesia. Anesthesia's gonna probably do this anyway, but if anesthesia's not in the room for whatever reason, maintain your IV access. And I say that because a lot of people don't think about this, and we had this conversation a couple days ago. Like I said, I got preceptees, and at this facility we precepted and we got students. So what the conversation was is, why do you need to make sure you have IV access? Because surgical techs don't think like this, because we're not at some places putting the IVs. Where I'm at in California, surgical techs have very limited room to maneuver. At other places, we putting in catheters, we starting IVs, we doing all kind of other stuff. So my knowledge base doesn't necessarily come from California training. It's just that this is what I know, besides me being medical, military and all that stuff. But make sure that you maintain IV access, because that will help the patient. If they need to get a patient something to calm them down or to sedate them, they can. If they don't have any IV access, then they can't do that. So you do run into the risk of having like combative patients, and you run into the risk of being stuck with instruments. A danger, or one of our other, I guess, risks is in our body, because we stand a lot. We're on our feet most of the day, and what we need to be mindful of is our posture and how we're like moving patients and positioning. I would just say be very aware of your body mechanics, and even outside of the OR, if you need to do stretches like yoga or anything that will help preserve your body, I would say do it, because it is very physical when you're not used to standing for long periods of time. And when I say long periods, y'all, I'm talking about hours. Like, if you want to be a surgical tech, go learn how to stand for 4 hours without sitting. I think that's a good, if you can get to 4 hours standing without a break, then you're good, because that's typically how long you might go without getting a break. If you get a break in before then, great, but around 4 hours, that's enough for you to do maybe one good case or maybe 2 cases, depending on how the day go. And you need to be prepared for that. Prepared for that. That to me is a risk. Like, it's a risk on our body, because we're just standing. It's wear and tear, and I found myself a lot of times having to stretch a lot more and to do things to preserve and not to be in pain. And it could be something as simple as changing the kind of shoes I wear. At certain facilities, they have these mats that have cushion in them. I pull them out now. Back in the day, I really didn't do all of that stuff, but now that I'm getting on the other side of 35, I'm learning that it's certain things that I need to do to prevent injury for myself. And it could be something too, like when the anesthesia provider wants to raise the patient up in a gurney, offer them a hand so that they're not trying to lift the patient up with one arm. Like, do it as a team. And so a lot of people don't realize that it's certain risks that do come along with being a surgical tech. So I just wanted to give y'all those, like I said, being stuck with sharp needles, working with patients that are infected with different kind of communicable diseases, patients that have all kind, and if you're like super sensitive to people too, sometimes this might not be a good field for you to be in, because like I say, we deal with all kind of patients. We deal with sick people, you guys. If they're in the operating room, they need to be in the operating room. At the facility that I'm in, a lot of the patients are sick. The cases might not be super complex, but they still are sick patients. And so, you know, you need to be on board with helping a person if they sick or not. Like, and you're gonna smell all kind of stuff. I smell poop. Sometimes I smell stuff, but I don't even know what the smell is or how to even describe it. But if you're sensitive to that, then this might not be the field for you. But I just wanted to come give you guys some risk and be realistic with what it's like to be a surgical tech. It's not all glitz and glamour like a lot of people want to think it is. It's really not. We deal with a lot physically and emotionally, because imagine if you were, we don't really deal with like a lot. I haven't dealt with a lot of death, but a lot of times I work with patients and then I'll think about them, and that shit'll go home with me, and then I'm in that energy of having empathy and sympathy for these patients, because they could be so, you know, sick or whatever the case is, and your heart goes out to them. So I just wanted to give y'all like a realistic picture of what it's like to be a surgical tech and some of the risks that go along with it that a lot of people aren't talking about as far as this field go. Like I say, with that needle sticks, you guys, don't be recapping. For one, it don't matter if you're a surgical tech, LPN, RN, whatever you is, if you don't be recapping stuff. Like, put that thing down, scoop it, and then put it on. Or I don't even touch it. Like, I'll scoop it and then push it on something. Like, I'm not touching that. Back to surgical techs working with the operative end. Let me show. So let's just say for this comb, if this comb was an instrument, let's just say this is the sharp end and this is the handle. This is the end that the physician will use, and this is the handle. As a surgical tech, when they want this, I'm gonna use it like that, right? So that means that all of this is sharp. That means I have a better risk of cutting myself or stabbing myself with this instrument, because I'm holding it or I'm operating it from the operating end, right? So the doc, they do hand gestures, you guys, so you're gonna learn like OR sign language a little bit. So if the doc is looking for something, sometimes they're not gonna even look at you. They just gonna have their hand out and they're gonna expect you to already know what they want. In order for me to put this instrument in the physician's hand in the position that is ready to be used, I'm gonna have to touch the operating end, which could be sharp, it could be, you know, not, it could be anything, and I just have to be mindful that's what's going on. So I just put it in their hand. But what I want you guys to understand is that we work with that operating end. I'm not handing the doctor the instrument like this. I'm not saying here you go doc, or even like this. Like, no, I'm literally holding it from this end and placing it in that end so they can go directly to doing whatever it is that they need to be doing with it. And this end typically is going to be sharp, or it's going to be something that could harm you or the other person or another person. Anyways, the video is 20 minutes, you guys. I'm sorry, I've been trying and I'm working on it. So anyways, I wanted to talk to you guys about that. I hope you guys liked the video. Please like it. I seen on the other video I got a thumbs down, but it's fine. That's engagement, boo. I appreciate your thumbs down too. And I'll catch y'all on the next video. I think that's all I got for you guys right now. So bye.